Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are absolutely zeroing in on a skill that is, well, completely fundamental to connecting with people in English.
Hmm.
We're talking about the art, and yeah, I think it is a skill of telling stories.
Definitely both.
We're diving deep into insights pulled directly from what seems like a fantastic resource designed to boost your English fluency. We're specifically focusing on the material for day 8, which is dedicated entirely to mastering this crucial area.
That's right. And storytelling, it isn't just some kind of performance art for special occasions. It's really deeply embedded in how we humans communicate. It's fundamental.
How so?
But it's how we share our world, isn't it? How we make sense of our experiences, how we build relationships, and honestly, how we just make ourselves relatable to other people.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And while it might come pretty naturally in our first language,
Yeah.
trying to translate that ability, that spark, that personality into English, well, that can feel like you're trying to navigate a maze sometimes.
Oh, totally. You know that feeling. I bet a lot of listeners do. You have this amazing thing that happened. Maybe it was funny, maybe dramatic, something you really want to share,
Hmm.
and you start speaking English, and then maybe you fumble for the right words, or you get tangled up in the past tenses, which we'll definitely get into.
The tenses are a big one.
Or maybe you rush it because you're nervous, or perhaps the opposite, you tell it perfectly, grammatically speaking, but it doesn't land, you know?
It falls flat. The listener nods politely, maybe smiles, but you can tell they weren't really captivated. They weren't drawn in.
Exactly. So the hurdles are real. Learners often struggle with, well, how do you even start a story effectively? How do you wrap it up so it feels satisfying?
And, as you said, how do you correctly use and maybe switch between those various past tenses without sounding, clunky or unnatural?
Hmm.
That's a huge sticking point for many.
Yeah.
And maybe the most challenging bit is how do you inject the life, the emotion, the crucial little details that make a story actually worth listening to? How do you make someone lean in and genuinely want to hear what happens next?
So that's our mission today in this deep dive. We're going to take this source material, really unpack it completely, and pull out the absolute core knowledge.
We want you, the listener, to walk away with a crystal clear understanding of how to structure a story in English so it's actually easy to follow.
Right. And how to use those sometimes tricky past tenses smoothly, naturally.
And crucially, the specific actionable techniques you can use right away to make your stories genuinely interesting, maybe even unforgettable.
Because think about it, whether you're just having a coffee with a new friend you've made,
Yeah, or something more formal, like interviewing for a job, maybe giving a presentation.
or even just chatting with colleagues during lunch break, being able to share a relevant experience in a compelling way, well, it just makes you a more dynamic communicator, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it makes you more memorable. It helps build that connection, that rapport, almost instantly. It's fluency in action, you could say. Real communication in the moments that really matter.
And this is precisely why this deep dive into day 8 of this resource is so valuable for you. It's not just about learning abstract grammar rules, it's about gaining practical techniques.
Techniques that will hopefully make you feel more confident and capable of connecting with others through your own unique experiences.
By the end of this, our goal is that you should have the tools to tell stories that people will genuinely enjoy listening to. They'll want to hear them.
And we're going to go beyond just, listing the points from the source. We'll really dig into the examples provided in the material. We'll analyze why they're effective and give you a solid framework to start applying these techniques yourself.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Let's unpack this treasure chest of storytelling wisdom then. Where do we start? What's the absolute foundation?
Structure. It has to be structure. It really is non-negotiable.
Why so critical?
Well, think about it. Our brains are basically wired for narrative. We naturally look for a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's how we process information most effectively.
Like any good journey, right? You need to know where you started
Exactly. What happened along the way?
and where you ended up.
Precisely. Without a clear structure, your story can easily feel like just a collection of random facts, or events sort of jumbled together without a clear point.
And the listener gets confused.
They get confused, or worse, they get bored, they lose interest, they might stop trying to follow along. And like we said before, the story just doesn't land. It fizzles out.
Okay, so structure is the skeleton. What kind of structure are we talking about? Does the resource give us something specific?
It does. And it's super simple, but incredibly effective. It's a 3-step structure.
3 steps, okay. Manageable.
Very. And it's elegant because it really mirrors that natural narrative arc our brains already crave. So
Yeah.
it feels intuitive once you get used to it.
All right. What are the 3 steps?
Step 1, set the scene. Step 2, the action. And step 3, the outcome.
Scene, action, outcome. Okay. Simple enough to remember.
Straightforward, memorable, and honestly applicable to almost any personal anecdote you might want to share, big or small.
Okay, let's break that down then. Step 1, setting the scene. This is the opening, right?
Exactly, your opening act. The main goal here is to give your listener just enough essential background information. Not too much, not too little.
Just enough so they understand the context.
Right. You're painting the basic picture so they know what's going on right from the start. You're orienting them.
And what information specifically goes in here?
The key questions you're answering in this first step are usually who was involved, where were you, and when. When did this happen?
Who, where, when. Got it.
You're essentially grounding the listener,
Yeah.
putting them in the time and place of your experience. You're sort of inviting them into your memory, setting the stage.
And the resource gives an example for this, right?
It does, and it's a fantastic, really concise example. Last summer, I was traveling in Italy with my best friend, Emma.
Okay, let's really look at that sentence. It seems simple, but what does it achieve?
A lot, actually, in just a few words. Last summer, that immediately establishes the when.
Okay.
Italy, that establishes the where, the general location.
Mm-hmm.
And I was traveling with my best friend, Emma, that establishes the who, the key people involved.
So in, what, 10 words?
Exactly, just
Yeah.
10 words. And you've provided all the critical and initial information a listener needs to get started. Notice what's not there,
Like,
like the specific city yet, or the weather, or how you got there, or what you were wearing. None of that detail is needed yet. You've given the absolute necessary foundation.
it prevents those initial distracting questions in the listener's mind, like, wait, who was with you? Or when was this?
Precisely.
Yeah.
You've preempted those basic orientation questions. You've set the stage cleanly and efficiently.
All right. Efficiency and clarity seem key here. You're not writing a huge introduction like in a book.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
You're just giving the listener the essential anchors so they can follow the main part of your story.
Which brings us smoothly into step 2, the action.
Yes, the action. This is the main body of your story. This is where you describe what actually happened.
The sequence of events.
The sequence of events, the core happening, maybe the conflict that arose, the surprise, the adventure, whatever the main point of your story actually is.
And this is where you start to weave in more details, right, to make it interesting.
Absolutely. This is the meat of the story, as you said earlier. This is where you elaborate a bit more.
So what's the example the resource gives for this step, building on the Italy story?
It continues logically. We got completely lost in a small village, and no one spoke English.
Ah, okay. So got completely lost. That's the core action, the event.
That's the main thing that happened, yes. But notice the details that are added in the small village.
Right. Specific location detail.
And no one spoke English.
Yeah.
That adds a crucial layer of context and difficulty.
Yeah, the language barrier makes getting lost even harder.
Exactly. It's not just getting lost anywhere. It's getting lost in a specific, potentially tricky situation where the usual solution, asking for help, is difficult. This immediately creates interest, maybe a little bit of tension.
It makes you wonder, okay, what happened next? How did they figure it out? It's the hook.
It pinpoints the significant incident. It's probably the reason you decided this story was worth telling in the first place. That combination of the core action, getting lost, with those specific details, small village, language barrier, paints a much clearer, more engaging, and more challenging picture than just saying, we got lost.
Makes sense. It gives the listener something concrete to latch onto.
Right. It moves the narrative forward with conflict or a key development.
Okay, so we've set the scene, we've had the action. Logically, next is step 3, the outcome.
Exactly, the outcome. This is the resolution of your story. How did everything wrap up?
How did it end?
How did it end? What was the final result? What happened because of the action you described? And sometimes, quite importantly, what did you learn from the experience? Or what was the main takeaway message?
Closure, basically.
Closure and often a concluding thought or feeling.
So what's the outcome for our Lost in Italy friends in the example?
The resource provides this lovely ending. In the end, a kind old man helped us find our way back, and we even got invited to his house for dinner.
Oh, that is a delightful ending. It works on multiple levels.
How so?
Well, first, it resolves the main conflict getting lost. The kind old man helped them find their way. Problem solved.
Right. Provides the essential resolution.
But then it adds that extra detail, and we even got invited to his house for dinner. That's wonderful. It's unexpected, it's positive, it adds warmth.
It does. It provides closure, but it also leaves the listener with a specific, positive image or feeling. It elevates the ending beyond just, we found our way.
It completes that narrative loop you mentioned. You started in Italy with a friend. You face a challenge, getting lost, and the outcome was not only solving the problem, but also experiencing this unexpected act of kindness and hospitality.
Exactly. It leaves the listener feeling satisfied, not left hanging or wondering, so what happened then? And, as you hinted, it subtly suggests a theme, doesn't it? Perhaps the unexpected kindness of strangers, or the benefits of getting a little lost sometimes. That's a common, relatable takeaway.
So just to recap that structure, step 1, set the scene. Who, where, when. Step 2, the action. What happened with key details and maybe conflict. And step 3, the outcome. How it ended, the resolution, maybe a takeaway or feeling.
That's the core framework.
And to really see how this flows together, the resource provides another complete, short example story. Let's look at that one.
Yes, this is a great little story about skydiving. It demonstrates the structure beautifully in a very compact way. Let me lay it out.
Okay.
Beginning. Last year, I decided to go skydiving for the first time with my friend Mike.
Okay, setting the scene.
Middle. We were so nervous, and right before we jumped, Mike looked at me and said, "What if my parachute doesn't open?"
The action and the tension.
End. Luckily, everything went perfectly, and it was one of the most exciting experiences of my life.
All right, let's break that one down quickly using our 3 steps again.
Go for it.
Okay, the beginning. Last year, that's the when, I and my friend Mike, that's the who, and the situation is decided to go skydiving for the first time. That sets the stage perfectly. You know the context. It's a planned adventure, probably exciting, maybe a bit scary.
Clear setup.
Then the middle, we were so nervous. Okay, straight away, you've added emotion, which is a key detail. Then right before we jumped, Mike looked at me and said, "What if my parachute doesn't open?" That's the action, that specific moment just before the jump. And it's heightened brilliantly by using Mike's exact words, that direct speech.
That quote really brings the moment to life, doesn't it?
It really does. It's the peak of the tension. It perfectly captures the fear and uncertainty of that situation, much better than saying Mike was worried.
Absolutely. Using dialogue there is incredibly vivid.
And finally, the end. Luckily, everything went perfectly. That's the immediate resolution. The jump was successful. The parachute did open. Phew.
Resolves the tension raised by Mike's question.
And then the outcome or takeaway. And it was one of the most exciting experiences of my life. That gives you the final feeling, the significance of the event for the storyteller. Excitement, achievement.
It works so well because it follows that structure precisely. You know the setup, you feel the moment of peak tension, and then you get the clear final result and feeling. It's a complete, clear, and engaging mini-narrative. It keeps you hooked from start to finish, even though it's short. You know exactly what the point of the story was.
So using this simple structure, even for just short anecdotes you might share in conversation, seems really powerful. It gives you a kind of mental roadmap, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It helps you organize your thoughts before you even start speaking, which is so crucial for fluency, especially under pressure.
Yeah, it probably stops you from rambling or, maybe worse, forgetting the most important part, which is often the ending. How many times have you heard a story just trail off?
Too many times. Having that structure in mind scene, action, outcome, helps ensure you actually deliver a complete narrative with a satisfying conclusion. It really is the skeleton of your story.
Okay, so once you have that solid framework, that skeleton, you can start adding the layers that give it, flesh and personality.
Exactly. And the first crucial layer we need to talk about is getting the language right. Specifically, using those past tenses correctly and naturally.
Yes, the past tenses. This is definitely an area where many English learners feel hesitant or get confused. You've got past simple, past continuous, past perfect. How do you choose the right one? When do you use which?
It's a common challenge for sure. Mixing them up can really make your story sound confusing or unnatural, or just difficult for the listener to follow the sequence of events accurately.
But the resource suggests we don't need to master every single nuance right away for storytelling.
That's the good news. For most everyday storytelling, you primarily need to get comfortable with just 3 key past tenses, as highlighted in the source material.
Okay, 3 main ones. Which are they?
Past simple, past continuous, and past perfect. If you can master these 3 and understand their core functions in a narrative, you'll be able to accurately convey the sequence of events and the context much more clearly, without getting totally bogged down in complex grammar rules.
All right, let's tackle them one by one. Where should we start?
Let's start with the absolute workhorse, the most common tense you'll likely use for storytelling. The past simple.
Okay, the past simple. What's its main job in a story?
Its main job is describing completed actions that happened at a specific time in the past. And crucially for storytelling, it's what you use for the main sequence of events, the things that happen one after another in your narrative.
So like the steps in the story.
Exactly. Think of it as the steps you took on your story journey. Action A happened, then action B happened, then action C happened. All finished, completed actions.
The resource gives some examples.
Yes. Classic, clear examples like, we arrived at the airport and checked in for our flight.
Okay, 2 actions there. Arrived, checked in.
Both completed, one after the other. First you arrived, then you checked in. Past simple moves the story forward step by step.
And the other example.
She called me last night to tell me the news.
Single action, called, completed last night.
Exactly. It's a single action finished at a specific past time. These past simple verbs are really the essential building blocks of your narrative timeline. They form the spine of your story, what actually happened in sequence.
Okay, that seems clear enough. Past simple for the main completed actions in order. What's next? Past continuous.
Yes, past continuous. This one adds a really important layer of depth and context to your story. It helps paint the picture.
How does it do that? What's its function?
It's used to describe actions that were ongoing or happening over a period of time in the past. It's perfect for setting the scene atmospherically.
Ah, like background details.
Yes, describing background actions that were already in progress while a main event occurred, which would often be in the past simple. Or it can describe 2 longer actions happening at the same time.
The examples from the resource probably make this clearer.
They do. Let's look at them. It was raining when we left the hotel.
Okay, so was raining is the past continuous part.
Right. It describes a continuous state or action. The rain was happening for some period of time. This ongoing action provides the background or atmosphere for the shorter, completed action left, past simple. You left while the rain was already falling.
What's the difference if you just use past simple for both? Like, it rained when we left.
Good question. It rained when we left sounds more like the rain started the exact moment you walked out the door. It was raining when we left tells us the rain was already in progress. It was the background condition during the action of leaving.
Hmm.
It paints a fuller picture of the scene.
Okay, that
Yeah.
distinction is helpful. What's the second example?
I was talking to my friend when I saw a celebrity.
Ah, okay, so the longer ongoing action was talking.
Exactly. That was happening over a period of time, and that longer action was interrupted by the shorter, more sudden action, saw. Past simple.
So past continuous shows what you were in the middle of doing when the main event, the shorter action, happened.
Precisely. It sets the stage for the interruption or the key event. It gives context. Think about describing a scene. The sun was shining, birds were singing, past continuous, sets the general atmosphere, the ongoing background.
It's like painting the backdrop for your story, adding texture and atmosphere. It helps the listener visualize the scene as it was unfolding, not just the key actions.
You got it. It captures the state or activity that was in progress at a specific point within your narrative timeline.
All right, so we have past simple for the main sequential actions, past continuous for the background or ongoing actions. That leaves the third one. Past perfect. This is the one that sometimes trips people up, I think.
It can seem a bit tricky, yes, but it serves a very important function, especially for clarifying the timeline. When events in your story didn't happen strictly one after the other in the order you're telling them.
So it's about sequence.
It's specifically used to describe an action that happened before another specific point in the past that you are currently discussing in your story. It helps you sequence events clearly when you need to refer back to something that occurred earlier than the main narrative flow you're in.
Okay, let's make that concrete with the examples from the resource.
Sure. The first one is, by the time we got to the station, the train had already left.
Okay, 2 past actions here. Got to the station, past simple, and had already left, past perfect.
Right. So the question is, which action happened first?
Well, the train leaving happened first. You arrived after it had left.
Exactly. Using the past perfect had already left clearly signals to the listener that the train's departure occurred prior to the moment you arrived at the station, which is described in the past simple. It sorts out the chronology perfectly. Without it, when we got to the station, the train left. Could sound like it left the moment you arrived.
Okay, the past perfect explicitly marks the earlier past action. What's the second example?
I had never tried sushi before that day.
Okay. Had never tried is past perfect. How does that work?
Here, it's describing a state or condition, the state of never trying sushi, that existed for a period of time leading up to a specific point in the past, referred to as that day in the story. So before that particular day mentioned in the narrative, the experience of trying sushi hadn't happened.
So past perfect isn't just for single actions, but also states that were true before a past point in time?
Yes, exactly. It anchors something as being completed or true before another past reference point.
So it's kind of like saying, okay, hold on with the main story for a second. I need to give you some background info about something relevant that happened even earlier than what I was just talking about.
That's a great way to think about it. It's like a little time jump backwards within your past narrative to provide necessary context or explain the sequence properly. It's essential for avoiding confusion when your past events aren't told in a simple A, then B, then C order. It clearly tells the listener, this happened first, then this other thing happened.
Okay, I think that makes the function clearer. It's about ordering events when you're not narrating strictly chronologically.
Precisely.
Now, the resource includes a little practice activity to help solidify the difference between past simple and past continuous, right?
It does, yes. A quick fill-in-the-blanks exercise. Ready for it.
Yep, let's hear it. Listeners, you can try this too.
Okay, the sentence is, yesterday, I see an old friend while I walk in the park. So you need to put see and walk into the correct past tense in those blanks. Think about the relationship between the two actions.
Okay, take a moment to think. Which action was ongoing? Which was the shorter event that happened during it? Pause for about 7–10 seconds.
All right, have you got your answer? What was happening continuously and what was the single event?
The correct answer, straight from the resource, is yesterday I saw an old friend while I was walking in the park.
Perfect, and let's quickly break down why that's correct.
Right.
Saw, past simple, is the single completed action seeing the friend happened at a specific moment.
Right.
The action was walking, past continuous, describes the activity that was ongoing over a period of time. You were in the process of walking when the seeing happened,
So was walking sets the background scene or the longer ongoing action?
during which the main event saw occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Past continuous provides the context for the past simple action.
See, when you understand the function of each tense main action versus ongoing background, it really clicks into place, doesn't
It
it?
does.
Yep.
And the resource strongly recommends practicing this,
Yeah.
which is absolutely brilliant advice. Don't just read about it.
How can listeners practice effectively?
Start simple. Try retelling your day yesterday. What did you do? Past simple. What was happening around you? Past continuous. Did something happen after something else had already finished? Past perfect could come in.
Or maybe describe a scene from a movie you watched recently.
Great idea. Or just recount any simple past experience, a meal you had, a conversation. As you do it, consciously think. Is this a main action step? Simple. Is this setting the background or describing something ongoing? Continuous. Do I need to mention something that happened before this point? Perfect.
It's about making it an active, conscious process initially.
Exactly. Practice telling short stories out loud or even just describing past scenes in writing. The more you consciously use these tenses with their intended function in mind, the more automatic and natural it will become over time. Don't be afraid of making mistakes.
That's important. Mistakes are part of learning.
Absolutely. They show you where you need more practice. The goal here is fluency and clarity in communication, not grammatical perfection on the first try.
All right, so we've tackled structure, that essential framework, and we've navigated the key past tenses, the tools to describe when and how things happened in the past accurately.
We have the skeleton and the basic language tools.
But, as we touched on earlier, even with a perfect structure and flawless tenses, a story can still feel, well, a bit dry maybe, a bit like a report.
It can, yes. Just the facts, man.
Right. So how do we add the personality, the color, the feeling? How do we make people genuinely want to listen and connect with the story?
Now we're talking about engagement. This is where you transform that factual report of events into a real experience for your listener.
Going beyond just clear and accurate.
Exactly. Structure makes it clear, correct tenses make it accurate, but engaging details are what make it captivating, memorable, and enjoyable. The resource outlines 3 simple yet incredibly powerful techniques for adding this spark, as you called it.
Okay, 3 techniques for engagement. What's the first one?
Technique number 1, use descriptive words. This sounds basic, but it's crucial. It's about consciously moving away from generic, bland language towards words that paint a vivid picture in the listener's mind.
So instead of just stating facts, using language that helps the listener see or feel it.
Precisely. Using more specific adjectives, adverbs, and sometimes more evocative nouns and verbs helps the listener engage their senses to see, hear, feel, maybe even smell or taste what you experienced. The resource gives this perfect side-by-side comparison.
Let's hear it.
Okay, the bad example. The beach was nice.
Nice. The classic vague adjective.
Right, it tells you almost nothing. Now compare it to the you're good example. The beach was breathtaking, with golden sand and crystal clear water.
Wow, okay. Huge difference.
Isn't it? Nice is completely uninformative. It can mean clean, quiet, sunny, anything. But breathtaking, that conveys a strong positive emotion, a sense of awe.
And golden sand, crystal clear water, those are specific visual details.
Exactly. They allow you to immediately imagine that scene. You can almost feel the warmth of the sun on that golden sand. You can picture seeing through the clear water. It transports you there, even just for a moment.
It transforms a simple statement into more of a sensory experience.
That's the goal. Think about other quick examples. Instead of the room was big, maybe the room was vast and echoing. Instead of the food was good, maybe the soup was rich and savory. Specificity creates immersion.
Okay, use descriptive words. Got it. What's technique number 2 for engagement?
Technique number 2, add emotions. Stories are ultimately about people, or at least experienced by people, and people have feelings. Sharing your emotional reactions or the emotional tone of the situation makes your story relatable. It allows the listener to connect with you on a more human level.
So it's not just what happened, but how you felt about what happened.
Exactly. And it's often the difference between just reporting your feelings, I was sad, and actually letting the listener feel it with you. Again, the resource provides a great contrast.
Okay.
Bad example.
I was scared. Simple statement of fact again.
Right. Now, the good example. I was terrified. My heart was racing, and I could barely breathe.
Much more powerful. Why does that work so much better?
Well, the first sentence just tells the listener a fact. You were scared. Okay, noted. But the second sentence doesn't just tell you were scared. It shows you were terrified. Firstly, terrified is a stronger, more descriptive word than scared.
True.
But the real power comes from describing the physical sensations associated with that intense fear. My heart was racing. I could barely breathe. These are universal physical responses to fear.
Things a listener can probably relate to feeling themselves at some point.
Exactly. They can easily recognize and empathize with those feelings.
Hmm.
They can almost feel your fear alongside you because you describe the physical manifestation of it. It makes the emotion much more visceral and real.
It feels more vulnerable and authentic, too, maybe.
I think so. When you share your genuine feelings, even just a little, you invite the listener into your experience more fully. So instead of just, I was happy, you might say, I was absolutely beaming, or I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. These are much more evocative and relatable.
Makes sense. Descriptive words, add emotions. What's the third technique?
Technique number 3, use direct speech or dialogue. This is a really brilliant way to bring characters, even minor ones, in your story and interactions to life.
So quoting what people actually said.
Yes, including the exact words someone said or that you said makes the story feel much more immediate, authentic, and dynamic. It's almost always more engaging than just summarizing what was said.
The example from the resource for this must be good.
It demonstrates the point perfectly.
Lay it on us.
The bad example. The waiter told me the food was spicy.
Okay, reported speech. Functional, but maybe a bit flat.
Right. Now compare it to the oi. Good example. The waiter looked at me and said, "Are you sure you want to eat that? It's very spicy."
Oh yeah, what a difference. The second one is like a mini scene unfolding.
Exactly. You get the waiter's specific words, right? Including his emphasis, you can almost hear him stressing, very spicy.
And it adds that little bit of action or body language too. The waiter looked at me.
Yes, that detail paints a picture. You can almost imagine his expression, maybe a raised eyebrow or a concerned look. It makes the interaction vivid and memorable. It adds personality to the waiter, who was just a function in the first sentence.
And it probably creates a moment of tension or humor, depending on the context. Ooh, should I eat it?
Precisely. It injects life and drama, even on a small scale. It allows the listener to hear the characters in your story. It can also be a great way to break up longer descriptive passages, or, like in that skydiving example earlier, to emphasize a key turning point or capture a crucial emotion through dialogue. Mike saying, "What if my parachute doesn't open?" was way more effective than Mike expressed his fear.
Okay, those 3 techniques seem really practical. Descriptive words, emotions, direct speech.
They are. And they don't need to be overly complicated. Just consciously trying to weave in one or two of these elements can significantly boost how engaging your story is.
The resource gives another practice example comparing two sentences, doesn't it?
Huh.
To highlight the difference engagement makes.
Yes, another simple comparison. Listen to these two options and think about which one makes you slightly more interested, which one draws you in more.
Okay.
Option 1. We had dinner at a restaurant.
Okay. Factual. Very basic.
Option 2. We found this amazing little Italian restaurant, and the pasta was the best I've ever had.
Pause for a few seconds. Yeah, no contest, really. The second one, obviously.
Right. Why, though? What makes it better?
Well, the first one is just information. Very dry. The second one uses descriptive words, amazing little Italian restaurant. That paints a picture, gives a positive vibe.
Good. What else?
And then it adds that strong opinion and emotion. The pasta was the best I've ever had. That's personal, it's enthusiastic, it makes me curious.
Exactly. It makes the listener curious. Like you said earlier, it begs follow-up questions. Oh, really? Where was it?
Yeah.
What kind of pasta? It turns a simple, potentially boring statement into a genuine conversation starter. It has personality.
It feels like an experience being shared, not just a fact being reported.
That's the key difference engagement makes.
Okay, let's try one more practice idea based on the resource, putting this into action. Take a really simple sentence and let's think about how we could make it more engaging.
All right, the basic sentence is, I went to the park yesterday. Super simple.
Okay, I went to the park yesterday. Listeners, take maybe 10 or 15 seconds. How could you add something to make that tiny bit more interesting? Think descriptive words, sights, sounds, smells. Think emotions, how did you feel? Maybe even imagine a tiny snippet of something someone said. Pause for 10, 15 seconds.
Okay, hopefully you had a few ideas. How did you flesh it out? Did you add a detail about the weather, something you saw, a feeling?
The resource suggests one possible way to make it more engaging, focusing on adding sensory details. What was their suggestion?
Their improved version was, I went to the park yesterday, and the sun was shining, kids were laughing, and I could hear birds singing in the trees.
Oh, that's lovely. It immediately creates a much richer atmosphere.
It does. Let's break it down. The sun was shining, that sight, maybe the feeling of warmth. It uses past continuous notice because it was an ongoing state.
Right.
Kids were laughing. That's a sound detail. Again, past continuous for an ongoing background action. And I could hear birds singing in the trees. Another sound detail. Painting more of the auditory scene.
So just by adding those few sensory details, you're inviting the listener into the atmosphere of the park, not just stating the bare fact that you were physically present there.
Exactly. It's all about adding these layers of detail that appeal to the listener's senses and emotions. And these techniques aren't about making things up or exaggerating wildly. No, often it's just about noticing and then including the rich details that were actually part of your experience, but which maybe you normally filter out when speaking, especially in a second language, where you might be focused just on getting the basic facts across.
So it requires a bit more conscious effort, at first anyway.
Definitely. Especially when you're also juggling the structure and the grammar, like the past tenses. But making that effort to add just one or two descriptive words or mention how you felt or quote one line of dialogue, it makes a huge difference to how your story is received.
Which brings us nicely to the question of how you actually put all of this together consistently in practice. It's one thing to understand structure, tenses, engagement techniques separately.
But combining them smoothly while you're actually trying to tell a story is the real goal.
Exactly. Does the resource offer a way to practice that integration?
It does. It provides a very simple, actionable framework specifically designed to help you practice combining all these elements. The structure, the tenses, and the engagement details.
Okay, a practice framework. Not necessarily a rigid rule for every single story you tell forever.
No, definitely not. Think of it more like training wheels or a mini blueprint to get you started and build the right habits. It's a fantastic tool for deliberate practice.
All right, let's hear the simple storytelling framework for practice from the resource.
Okay, it mirrors the main structure we already discussed, but frames it as actionable steps for practice.
Set the scene. Just like we talked about who, where, when, the resource prompts you to think or jot down notes. Where were you? Who with? When? And it gives an example starting point like, last winter, I was in New York City.
Okay, step 1, establish the basics.
Step 2, describe the main event. What was the key thing that happened? The core action, the problem, the surprise, the funny incident. Think about the action part of our structure. The example prompt here is, suddenly I realized I had lost my phone in Times Square.
Okay, step 2, the core incident.
Step 3, the outcome. How did it finish? Was the problem solved? What was the final result or feeling? This matches the outcome part of our structure. The example prompt is, luckily, a kind stranger found it and returned it to me.
So it's basically prompting you to think through the beginning, middle, and end using those core questions.
Exactly. It provides a structure to hang your details on when you're practicing. The idea is you take any simple experience you want to practice telling.
Like what?
Oh, anything. A funny encounter you had, a moment of unexpected kindness someone showed you, maybe the first time you tried a new type of food or activity, something relatively contained.
And then you use these 3 steps to map it out.
Yes. Just quickly think or note down the answers for your chosen story. 1, scene, who, where, when. 2, main event, what key thing happened. 3, outcome, how did it end?
Let's try applying that framework quickly to another example just to see how it works. Maybe that story you mentioned about trying a new food.
Great idea. Let's use the framework for, say, trying insects in Thailand.
Set the scene. Okay, who? Me and my sister. Where? A street food market in Thailand. When? Last month. So, the note might be, last month, Thailand street market with sister.
Okay, basic scene set.
Step 2. Describe the main event. What happened? Saw insects for sale. Vendor offered some. Felt nervous but decided to try. Bought fried crickets. So, notes. Saw insects. Vendor offered. Nervous but brave. Bought crickets.
Core action sequence.
Step 3. The outcome. What was the result? Tried them. Surprisingly tasty. Nutty. Ate the whole bag. Notes. Tried crickets. Surprisingly nutty, tasty. Ate them all.
Okay, so you have the basic plot points mapped out using the framework.
Exactly. Now, the crucial practice part comes after this quick mapping. When you actually tell the story based on these notes, you consciously look for opportunities within each step to add those engagement techniques.
Ah, so you use the framework as the guide, then layer on the details.
Precisely. So when telling the set the scene part, I might add descriptive words. Last month, my sister and I were wandering through this bustling, noisy street food market in Bangkok.
Adding atmosphere.
Then for the main event, I'd add emotion and description. At one stall, piled high, I saw something I genuinely never considered eating insects. I felt really nervous, my stomach did a little flip, but I also felt curious. The vendor, this friendly old lady, smiled and held out a stick of fried crickets. They looked surprisingly crunchy and, well, kind of weird.
Bringing it to life with feelings and specifics.
And for the outcome, adding taste description and reaction. So I took a deep breath, bought a small bag, and popped them in my mouth. And you know what? They were shockingly good, really nutty and savory. I ended up eating the whole bag, feeling quite proud of myself.
See, that illustrates perfectly how the framework guides the basic story, but then you deliberately weave in the descriptive words. Bustling, crunchy, nutty, the emotions, nervous, curious, proud, shockingly good, and maybe even a bit of dialogue. The vendor smiled and held out.
It makes the abstract techniques much more concrete and manageable during practice. Using this simple framework forces you to clarify the beginning, middle, and end before you start talking, which really helps combat rambling.
Definitely.
And then, as you practice telling stories using it, you deliberately look for those opportunities within each step to apply the engagement techniques. It helps build the habit of including richer detail more naturally over time.
It simplifies the whole process, makes it feel less overwhelming than trying to do everything at once from scratch.
It really does. Focus on getting the structure right, first using the framework, then as you tell it, work on incorporating the past tenses correctly, and finally, consciously layer in those powerful engagement details, descriptive words, emotions, dialogue, to make your stories truly shine.
Wow. Okay, we have really covered a lot today, taken a very deep dive into both the mechanics and, I guess, the art of telling stories effectively in English, pulling directly from this insightful Day 8 resource material.
Yes, I think we've thoroughly unpacked the key elements. We highlighted the absolute necessity of that clear, simple 3-part structure. Step 1, set the scene, who, where, when. Step 2, the action, what happened. Add those key details. And step 3, the outcome. How did it finish? What was the result or takeaway? We saw how this framework prevents confusion and really guides the listener smoothly through your experience.
And we definitely navigated those essential past tenses for storytelling. We clarified the past simple for the main sequential actions like we arrived and checked in.
The backbone of the narrative.
The past continuous for setting the background scene or describing ongoing actions like it was raining when we left the hotel.
Adding that context and atmosphere.
And the past perfect for clearly referencing events that happened earlier than the main story point. Like by the time we got there, the train had already left. Mastering these really helps sort out your timeline.
Absolutely crucial for clarity.
And then, very importantly, we explored how to move beyond just clarity and accuracy to make your stories truly engaging.
Yes, we covered those 3 powerful techniques from the resource. Technique 1, using descriptive words to paint vivid pictures like an amazing little Italian restaurant with the best pasta.
Technique 2, adding emotions to connect with your listener on a human level, like, I was so excited, I could barely sit still.
And technique 3, using direct speech or dialogue to bring interactions and characters to life, like the waiter looked at me and said, "Are you sure you want to eat that? It's very spicy."
And finally, we looked at that practical 3-step framework. Set the scene, main event, outcome as a simple, concrete tool you can use immediately to start practicing putting all of this together. Like the example, step 1, last summer I was in Paris. Step 2, suddenly I realized I had lost my passport. Step 3, luckily a kind stranger helped me find it.
It's a great starting point for practice.
Yeah.
So if you, the listener, have ever felt that your stories just don't quite have the same impact in English as they do in your first language,
Or if you sometimes struggle with getting your point across clearly when you're recounting past events.
then these techniques we've discussed today, drawn from the source material, offer a direct, actionable solution. They provide the tools to organize your thoughts, use more accurate language, and make your narratives genuinely compelling.
And applying these principles consistently won't just make your stories easier for others to understand, it will make them much more enjoyable for your audience to listen to.
Which means you'll likely find your conversations become richer, you'll feel more confident sharing your personal experiences, and ultimately, you'll connect with people on a deeper, more meaningful level.
Which leads us perfectly into your challenge for today. Because the resource doesn't just explain these concepts, it gives you a specific task to help you internalize them through practice.
Yes, time to put it to action.
Okay, listener, here is your challenge based directly on the Day 8 material.
Think of a short, simple story from your own life. Seriously, don't aim for your most epic, complex adventure right away. Keep it manageable. Maybe something funny that happened yesterday, or a small, surprising encounter, or a moment where you learned something unexpected.
Something you feel comfortable sharing, even if just with yourself initially.
Step 2. Use that 3-step structure we practiced. Beginning, set the scene, middle, the action, and the outcome to quickly outline the key points of your story. Just 3 brief phrases or sentences to map it out mentally or on paper.
Get that basic skeleton down.
Step 3. Now, tell that story out loud. You could tell to yourself while walking, record your voice on your phone, which is great for review. Write it down fully if that helps you process, or even better, share with a language partner, a tutor, or a patient friend.
And here's the key part of step 3. As you tell it, make a conscious effort to apply the engagement techniques we discussed. Try to use a few specific descriptive words. Try to express the emotions you genuinely felt in that moment. And if there is any memorable conversation, even just one line, try to include some direct speech.
This is where the real learning happens, right? Applying the theory.
Absolutely. This is where the rubber meets the road. Don't worry about being perfect. Seriously. Just focus on using the structure as your guide and intentionally adding maybe 1 or 2 descriptive details or 1 emotional expression that weren't in your super basic outline. Take that first step.
And the resource encourages reflection after you try this, which is a great idea. So we genuinely love for you to think about or even share your experience with this challenge.
Yeah, ask yourself, what story did you choose to tell today using the structure? Which of the techniques we covered, was it the structure itself, focusing on the past tenses, using descriptive words, adding emotions, or including dialogue? Which one felt the most helpful or made the biggest difference for you in telling that particular story?
And maybe also reflect honestly. What is still the most challenging part of telling stories in English for you right now? Is it finding the right words? The grammar? Feeling natural?
Because understanding your specific challenges is always the first step to targeting your practice and overcoming them.
The more you practice telling stories, even simple ones, using this conscious approach, the more natural that structure will start to feel.
And the more intuitive your use of past tenses will become, and the easier it will be to automatically sprinkle in those engaging details, the descriptions, the feelings, the quotes that really make your personality shine through when you speak English.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
You should now have a really robust set of tools and a practical framework to start telling more effective and much more engaging stories in English. But of course, your journey to greater fluency doesn't stop here.
No, the resource gives us a little preview of what's coming up next in day 9.
And what are we diving into tomorrow?
Tomorrow's deep dive is going to tackle a method that many learners love the idea of, but often struggle to use effectively for actual language improvement.
Ooh, intriguing. What is it?
Learning English from movies and TV shows.
Ah, yes. That's such a common one, isn't it? Everyone watches movies and TV shows, and it feels like you should be good for your English.
Right, but the question is, how do you go beyond just passively watching with subtitles in your own language to actually using that content to accelerate your listening skills, your vocabulary, your understanding of natural spoken English?
No, it can feel overwhelming, like trying to drink from a fire hose, or sometimes it feels like you're just watching for entertainment and not really learning anything substantial.
Precisely. And that's why the next session, based on day 9, is going to be so important. We'll dive into really practical strategies from the resource, like how do you choose shows or movies that are actually suitable for your current learning level? Because choosing the wrong thing can be demotivating.
Good point.
We'll look at specific techniques for actively training your ear to understand fast, natural native speech, which is often very different from textbook audio.
And subtitles. What's the best way to use them? Or not use them?
Exactly. We'll explore crucial insights into how to use subtitles effectively for learning, because the approach recommended in the resource might actually surprise you. It's not always what people assume.
Okay, I'm definitely curious about that. So you definitely won't want to miss our deep dive into day 9, how to learn English from movies and TV shows. Make sure you're following along so you catch that one as soon as it drops.
And the resource leaves us with a thought for today that beautifully ties everything together about storytelling. It suggests that great conversations often start with great stories.
Great conversations start with great stories. Why do you think that's so true?
Well, I think it's because stories are fundamentally the currency of human connection, aren't they? They're how we share vulnerability, how we build empathy, how we transmit our culture, our values, our personal experiences. They bridge gaps between people.
That's a powerful way to put it.
So the final thought to leave you with is this. How does taking these intentional steps we've discussed today, mastering the structure, getting comfortable with the tenses, consciously adding those engaging details, how does that fundamentally change your capacity to connect with other people in truly meaningful ways when you're speaking English?
It's not just about sounding better, it's about connecting better.
Exactly. It elevates every single interaction, from the casual chat to the important presentation. It empowers you to share who you are.
A really powerful concept to reflect on. So, your challenge is waiting. Tell your story today. Start simple, use the framework, and remember to add that spark of engagement.
Keep practicing, keep exploring new ways to express yourself in English, and most importantly, keep sharing your unique experiences with the world. They deserve to be heard.
Couldn't agree more. We'll see you tomorrow for the deep dive into learning from movies and TV. And until then, keep talking, keep practicing, and enjoy the process of becoming a more confident and engaging English storyteller.